Welcome back to another chess game analysis video. So today I want to show you a very nice Caro-Kann game that I played online on chess.com. Since you guys know that I normally like to study the Caro-Kann quite extensively, and I've covered a couple of very nice games with the Caro-Kann, I want to go in depth even more and show another game. So this was played on chess.com in a 5+5 blitz game, so it's a little bit of a short time control, which means that especially middle game is not that precise, but let's go into it. I sometimes want to show a little bit of different modes, not only just classical, because I think it's also important that you can learn a lot from the mistakes that happen when you only have like 5 minutes to play a game. So we have e4 and c6, the Caro-Kann defense. Usually my way to go nowadays if I want to play a serious game with black against e4. Sometimes I experiment, of course, with Sicilian. We have knight f3, not the main move, d5 strike in the center. E takes d5, c takes d5, so we have kind of a delayed exchange variation where white has not committed to d4, but now he goes for it. So, putting a pawn in the center, that's what you usually need to do. Bishop g4, also not main line, but I think with the exchange, a lot is playable, so not a lot of tension in the center. Bishop f4 development d6, trying to get the dark square bishop out into the game. Knight bd2 now protecting, or like overprotecting the other knight, which is a good development move. Now bishop d6, trying to trade off the bishop. And now he tries to be a little bit sneaky with this bishop e5 move, which is not that great of a move. In this position, just taking would have been better here. But he tries to be sneaky, attacking this g7 pawn, which is not defended, and now he forces me to take, which I would have done anyway, which I think is alright. Now he needs to take with the pawn, and we reach a little bit of similar position as in the advanced variation where white has an e5 pawn here, which gives a little bit of a space advantage, which is normally a good thing. But still, I also have a very nice pawn in the center. So knight c6 already immediately attacks this e5 pawn, and the knight is pinned to the queen, so you need to do something about this. Pinning the knight, which is alright. Knight e7, now putting a piece into the attack with preparing castles. h3, and now the better alternative would have been to now give up this bishop. After queen takes, you can just castle. According to the engine, black is a little bit better. Now you're threatening this pawn. You can double attack the pawn at some point, maybe triple attack the pawn. So this is already better for black. But I just didn't want to give up my bishop that easily, so I moved it to f5. Black is still better here, but not that much. Now he is playing pretty well. I think knight d4 now attacking the bishop and the knight, which is pinned. So we have queen b3, b6 now defending the knight. Knight 2, b3 with castles. Bishop takes knight, and now I have to take with the b pawn, because otherwise if you take with the knight, then knight takes here and you get a very nasty pawn structure. So b takes, which is anyway a good move because you get the b file, which now opens. It's the only half open file here. So black can occupy this, and you're gonna see how this is gonna be important later on. We have castles. Now, here he has got the chance to actually eliminate this nice bishop and knight captures, but he chose not to in the game. And after castles, I chose not to defend the bishop either here. I played a5, gaining space on the queen side, and that's normally what you do in the Caro-Kann. You try to gain space on the queen side and try to minority attack with this one pawn against two here, which is normally a good strategy here as well. If he lets you save the bishop, why not just save the bishop? I played a5. As said, it's a blitz game. In a classical game, I would have carefully considered trying to save this bishop, because it's an alright piece. It's in front of its pawn chain, and now it's doing an alright job, I guess. Always having a nice control on this diagonal. But he didn't take, he again didn't take. c3, a4, now gaining more space on the queen side. Now he took finally, and I recaptured. Quick note here, if you try to capture this knight, knight takes e7, in between check, and then queen takes b3, and you're just down a piece. So don't blunder a piece here. After this you need to take this knight. Knight takes f4, f5. And now he has time to save his knight, knight d4, which allows me now to trade off the knight. Queen takes. And now you could queen trade, you could also take on b2 here, which I thought in the game was a little bit risky. But in the game I decided to play c5, gaining even more space on the queen side with the pawns. And you see the pawns are already very nicely advanced. The queen gets kicked away from the center and the engine already says minus 2.2, so black is better, maybe even winning. And you see this visually. Black is gonna get a very nice pawn chain here if the pawn advances even more. And these pawns on the queen side for white are gonna be very weak. Let's see how this develops. He moves the queen away, queen d2, it was attacked. Rook fba, now attacking this very weak b2 pawn. Rook a, b1, an ugly move to play, but you somehow needed to defend this pawn. Now we have c4, controlling the b3 square, so that the b2 pawn becomes a weakness, and it can never move forward because it's just gonna get captured. And in this position it's already quite difficult to actually find a good move. The engine here suggests something like king h2, and after rook a5, f4, rook b5, you can just triple on the b file and then you're gonna win this pawn, and the engine says it's basically already over. Because of this weak backwards pawn that you can't really defend. At some point a3 is gonna come and then the b file is gonna open and you're just gonna win with this tripling on the b file, so very ugly position already. My opponent, I understand that he did not play king h2. He tried to somehow take the attack out of the position by trying to queen trade. Queen d4, and yes, this trades off one of the attackers, but now you see the advanced pawns here and the rooks, which are very nicely placed, can infiltrate white's position. And here begins the technical part of actually how to win this endgame, because the engine says it's -6, so you're completely winning without being up material. And the reason for that is just these backward pawns and the b file, which is open and black can control it. So I think very illustrative that I played this for once correctly, the endgame. I have to say it's not that difficult, but you still need to think a little bit. Rook b4, now preparing the doubling of the rooks on the b file. Now he brings his rook into the game. Rook fc1, rook a b8, very natural moves, just doubling on the b file. Rook c2, now just in case, because we have back rank issues here. I don't want to open the position just now, because white's position is basically paralyzed. The pawns can't really move, the rooks can't really move, otherwise there's just a pawn is just gonna fall, so I have time, I play h6. Also, in the future I want to activate my king at some point over the light squares, so I have all the time I need. He plays a3 now, which is not the best move, because now it lets my rook come to b3 where it can't get kicked away anymore. But it's already difficult. If you don't play a3, at some point I can play a3 and you can never capture this because the rook is hanging. So if you don't play a3, probably at some point black is gonna play a3 and then the position is gonna open and you're gonna at least lose one, maybe even 2 pawns. So I understand that he played a3, but it's a strategic mistake because now the rook can just easily infiltrate and there's nothing white can do anymore. He played f3, and now you have the idea of taking on a3 already, because the pawn is pinned. If you just recapture, then the rook just falls and you're just gonna win a pawn, maybe you're even gonna win this pawn. White just has a very passive position, so if you wanna go for this already, the tactical component is already playing for black, so you could just take the pawn and be up a passed pawn in this very nice endgame. I chose to play it a little bit differently. After f3, I played rook d3. I just thought, okay, these pawns are never really gonna get away. They're just gonna stay there, so I can easily just take the d4 pawn because it can't be defended anymore. So I have time. And I don't want to trade the rooks because I have 2 very active rooks and he's got very passive rooks. So first just taking your time, grabbing this d pawn, he activates his king rook d3 check, king e2, and now that I won this very nice d pawn on the way, now the tactic, I'm gonna go for it, rook takes a3. He recaptures with the b pawn, and now he's gonna lose a rook. I sacrifice the rook here temporarily, so I get my rook back, and I'm just up 2 pawns here in this endgame. He prophylactically defends the pawn, rook b3. Now you see a very nice and active rook, and he has a very passive rook here. He activates his king, which is correct. King h7, king c2, king g6, and now you see very nicely just that he can never really do something. The rook very nicely cuts off the white king. It's defended, he can't move the rook, he can't move the pawns. He played f4, king f5. Now, at some point, you're gonna push these pawns forward and try to queen, or you're just gonna grab all the pawns here with the king on the king side, and then these pawns are gonna roll. So a very paralyzed position. He played g4 check, and after king takes f4, he's down 3 pawns in this pawn endgame, and he still has a very paralyzed position where he can't move anything. Next move is gonna be I capture here or I capture here, basically. If the pawn moves at some point, I can even capture here, so this position is completely lost, and he realized that and he resigned the game in this position. I think very illustrative game on how to win with the Caro-Kann, trying to use this B file which often opens and trying to attack these weak pawns like the B2 pawn or the A3 pawn. I hope this was a very nice illustration and you learned something from how to exploit these weaknesses in the Caro-Kann. I think this was a very nice game, and I hope you liked it as well. I hope you sent me games that you want me to analyze. Maybe you played a game yourself, or a famous chess player played a game that you want me to analyze. Don't forget to check out my Lead Chess community study link below. Check out my Instagram and my Twitch for live streaming. And I'm gonna see you in the next video. Bye.